Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to a special evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm not your host this evening. I'm more of a compere, if you like, the warm-up act. I am the Gov. Thank you for joining us. Hit the like, subscribe, all of that wonderful business, and we really want to see the live chat busy this evening. Get your comments in, your thoughts. Obviously, our guest is here, and you can put questions to him. We'll try our best to feed the live chat in. I know we've put the question forward to our Discord users. How you become a Discord member? It was quite simple. Hit join on YouTube. $4.99 cancel at any point. And I know the host of questions coming from there. And of course, a big shout out to our audio listeners. For those that don't know, I have been away on holiday, hence why your audio feed might have randomly stopped. So apologies on that one. But as I am back, that will resume. And don't forget, if you are listening on any audio device, leave a 5-star review and let the world know about Talking Town as we build up to this Premier League campaign. Now only 9 days away. Gosh, it is getting closer and closer. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and get active in our live comments. So I'm not your host this evening. No. Your host for the evening is a man that knows our guest well, friends for many years, I believe. But so I'll hand over to you for what will be a special evening. It is, of course, the one, the only, Mr. Matthew.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks a lot. Welcome in, everybody. Very exciting times, as Martin says. We're right on the periphery of the Premier League season started, so it's only right that we get a Premier League guest, a Champions League guest even. He's the current Sports Journalism Awards Football Writer of the Year, Football Supporters Association Writer of the Year, probably the best writer for football in the country right now. It is Mr. Henry Winter. Welcome in, Henry.
Hi, guys. Thanks very much for having me on. That's absolutely
How you doing?
I hope my Norwich City season ticket holding cousins are not listening in. Otherwise, I'm going to be banned from the Broads for Christmas. But I'm a big fan of Ipswich, big fan of your show, and we go back a few years. So no, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for taking the time to see us. It's fantastic. Many congratulations on your new Substack, Henry Winter's Goalposts, which everyone can subscribe to via the link below there, henrywinter.football. I think it's fantastic value, as I say, one of the best writers in the country, the best, Henry, and your writing delivered straight to your inbox. It's basically it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean it's crazy, the different platforms. I mean, you look at the platform that you've got. When I started out in 85, 86, it was literally sending a pigeon from a match and covering the headers and volleys. And now you look at what you guys are doing. It's remarkable how the platforms have changed. Social medias, Twitter, whatever it's called now, X, 2009, that transformed everything. But the most important things, I think your tagline is for fans, by fans.
Yeah,
that is so important, and that really came home to me during lockdown, when I was fortunate because I was at the Times at the time, and I was able to go to matches, and going to matches without fans is just the most soulless experience. It's just, it's like a relationship without love. It's just, without getting too carried away, but, pre-season, we're allowed to get carried away, but, and it's absolutely important what you guys do, what the Football Supporters Association does. And you are the sort of, the warning, the early alarms when things go wrong with the club, whether it's an owner, and you've had one or two owners in the past, but certainly one owner in the past, and the fans, just basically sort of tugged at the consciences and the laptops of the mainstream media and nudged us into action. So, the European Super League would have happened without fans. So without getting sort of too political and heavy, what you do, obviously you were 2 divisions away from a European Super League, but the European Super League would have stopped Ipswich coming up. They wouldn't have wanted that, despite your heritage in Europe, despite your great heritage. So anyway, that's party political broadcast over. Just fans matter so importantly.
For the many and not the few, Henry. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you how your summer was, but you spent most of it in Germany. So very quickly touch on that. Missed opportunity for England a little bit, do you think?
Don't. I mean, look, I don't need to tell Ipswich fans. I mean, you gave this country two of its greatest managers.
Yeah.
You know, in Sir Alf and Sir Bobby, dear Sir Bobby. I mean, used to go and interview him at Newcastle, and I mean, you would get sort of like 25 minutes with him, and then the sort of, you know, the lovely press lady Hazel would come around and say, "Come on, Sir Bobby, you've got another interview, or you've got to go home," or and he'd say, "Well, you know, we're still in the group stage of Italia 90. We're still talking about that." So I've always associated Ipswich sort of embedded in England. You know, the sort of the history of the game. And so, yeah, the summer was frustrating. I kind of knew what was going to happen because, you know, it's possible to really admire Gareth Southgate as a man and how he's changed the culture. And you know what the FA in England were like, how he took the fear out of the shirt, how he reduced all the club cliques. I remember talking to Stephen Gerrard in 2006 once about his first appearance with England, and he said, "Well, I was absolutely convinced when I turned up at the England hotel that Gary Neville was going to jump out from behind some potted plant and attack me because of that Liverpool-Manchester United rivalry." So, you know, Southgate got rid of all that tension. He got the fans back on side, and remember the nadir of 2016 in Nice when it was just shocking, you know, that the fans were turned against the team. And so he was brilliant like that. But I never felt, and I'd felt this certainly from the second half against Italy in the 2020 final at Wembley, that he had what was needed, that decisiveness to change a game in key moments. You could argue, go back to 2018 in Croatia, the semi-final. So look, he did amazing things, and whoever succeeds him, whether it's Eddie Howe, I mean, Lee Carsey will get it in the short term, but Eddie Howe longer term, probably, possibly, you know, has a fabulous collection of players. You know, I mean, it's just, this is I've been covering in what, 30 odd years. I've done more than a third of England internationals ever played. And I just look at this squad and you see the talent, you see Bellingham, you see Kane had a poor tournament, still finished joint top scorer. The players who were left out, you know, so Maddison, Rashford, Grealish, players like that. You look at Cole Palmer, couldn't get it to start a game because Bukayo Saka was playing. You know, you look at England had people missing in defence, and still the defence was outstanding. Mark Gay's being linked with a £70 million move. So look, the quality absolutely there. So very frustrating with England, but the best team won. Spain were the better team, and what they showed, their tact, they were bold. They unleashed 16, 17-year-olds. You know, they were just. So I was glad they won, but frustrated for England because this squad has got a trophy in them.
Absolutely. Okay, Henry. Well, let's move on from international football. Like I said earlier, on the periphery of the domestic campaign starting. Do you know, 18 months ago, Ipswich was a League One club, Henry. Are you surprised to see us back in the Premier League so quickly? I know we are.
Do you know what? I think, was it 3 years ago you were playing Morecambe? Was it 2-2? I think that was the anniversary was that like August the 7th, August the 8th, 3 years ago. And the reason why that springs to mind is that, you know, I was a huge admirer of Paul Mariner. And I think you'd correct me if I'm wrong, you had a minute's applause before, if that was the game, I think just to sort of salute Paul Mariner. Is that correct?
The guy Colin, big Paul Mariner fan in the comments there, he'll tell us. But yes, absolutely. It was that season, I believe. Yeah.
I really like Paul as an individual and obviously as a fabulous footballer. So that's why that game sort of struck in my mind. But having met Kieran McKenna at Manchester United, and particularly I had a chat with him. Manchester United were playing in Barcelona. I think they lost 3-0, but I was checking into a hotel and it was a Manchester United hotel. And as ever with United, you know, there was sort of, you know, chaos and hubbub and autograph hunters, but just the one calm person in the middle of it was Kieran. And I was checking in and he was there and he just stopped for a chat. He sort of knew me vaguely. I think I was writing a book with Michael Carrick at the time, and obviously those two were close. And it's interesting how their careers are sort of developing. Kieran's obviously, you know, accelerated ahead, but there was just a calmness about him. You just immediately was struck by someone who knew they were going, even though they were sort of coaching. And I knew his backstory about his injury and the frustrations along the way. And I didn't realize he came from such an interesting background. I think it was at Enniskillen or Fermanagh. So just I've always sort of followed him. And I remember there was one game when Chris Smalling, I've always liked Chris because he's such an interesting character. And the reason for telling this Manchester United story is that Chris Smalling scored a set-piece goal at Watford for Manchester United. I remember Jose Mourinho, and he's always worth watching in the dugout, however annoying you might find him. He turned to McKenna and just nodded. And you just knew, well, that was a sign of Mourinho's approval, but also the work that McKenna had done behind the scenes on set pieces. And you would know far better than I would whether Ipswich are good at set pieces or whether, you know, defending or attacking them. But certainly he's one of the most meticulous individuals I've ever met. I mean, I don't think he has sugar in his coffee, but the couple of times I've had a coffee with him, he almost counts out the grains of the sugar that puts into it. There is that slightly sort of obsessive side to him, but you'll have talked to him, you'll have met him. I mean, I'm just looking at it as an outsider, but when I've been down the training ground and seen him interact with players, you can see why they want to play for him, why they'll run through brick walls with him. There was a moment last time I was there, I was seeing one of the players, and Amari Hutchinson was walking down the corridor, gliding down the corridor, a bit like he plays, and he had his hood up, and McKenna just went past and just stopped and asked him something about his family, just in a very sort of human way, not a sort of, you know, some managers can do it very deliberately, you know, just say, I'm just sometimes in front of a journalist, but actually more, just get the player on side by asking, you know, how's your family? This was absolutely genuine. You could tell, you know, you can tell, and that there was an absolute warmth there. So you can see why players who are at the club want to play for him, and players who are in the transfer market look at Ipswich, look at him and say, I want to play for Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you mentioned him earlier, Bobby Robson. I mean, he made his name at town, obviously, Henry. Then he mentors Mourinho at Barcelona. Then Mourinho takes McKenna under his wing at Manchester United. And then just to complete that circle, McKenna gets back-to-back promotions at Ipswich. I mean, it's an amazing story. But, I mean, to think that he's been mentored by Mourinho and Solskjaer, I mean, how big are those two characters, do you think, playing in his managerial career?
I think with a manager like Kieran McKenna, he's his own man. Absolutely, he's intelligent enough to have, well, he's very intelligent. I mean, I think he carried on doing all his GCSEs and I think A-levels and all that. And did he go to Loughborough to do sports science?
I think he did, actually. I think you're right, yeah.
You know, yeah. He's super bright. So, you know, he's intelligent enough to realize I should learn from these people. And, you know, every day is a learning day, to use that cliche. But I think it's wasn't simply the sort of, you know, the managers like Solskjaer and Mourinho. I think he looked at players, and particularly if you're at a club like Manchester United, you look at the elite players there, what makes them tick? Because for his own benefit, for that pursuit of excellence, even if it's completely different to setting up a team, to an individual sort of approach to his own work, I just think there's something about him that he just knows that, you know, we all look at people in life and you go, wow. I mean, I've just been watching the Olympics, and that Swedish pole vaulter, you just look at his focus and his appetite and you think, well, how do I apply that in my own far smaller world, but in terms of just doing better? We'll do that in our own life. So I just think he's so broad-minded, McKenna. He's great. I mean, I've been lucky to interview him a couple of times, and he was just, I found him fascinating company. But you very much got the impression, I'm always slightly wary of managers who are nice to journalists, but having grown up covering Manchester United under Alex Ferguson, I quite like that, you know, go in, right, your shite approach for himself. But McKenna, I got the impression McKenna was, you know, he's absolutely very happy to do interviews. He understands the media. He's obviously a very well brought up individual, huge credit to his family, and he's just genuinely polite, you know, and that mantra that we all try to teach our kids of, you know, work hard and be nice to people, you know, he's obviously got that embedded in him. But I also got the impression that he was very much his own man. He wouldn't need the media to help him, as some managers do. No, he was just, very, very, very impressive. And I was so pleased that he stayed on. And I know there were a couple of clubs that, you know, Premier League clubs that were interested in, but I really wanted him to stay. And I actually thought he would stay, partly because of Mark Ashton, but partly because of just the nature of the man. You know, he is on a mission. It sounds a little bit sort of American, but there is something about him that's driving him. And look, he will end up at, I don't know, Manchester United or a Champions League club one day, but he can see that his path, his journey, the best environment for him at the moment is at Ipswich Town Football Club, and it's fantastic. And you guys and him and the whole club and the whole county are on this fantastic ride together, and long may it continue upwards, because it's been extraordinary. Was it 192 odd points or goals or whatever? I mean, I'm hopeless with stats, but
that's like that, yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It really, I mean, look, we're just as shocked as you, Henry. Here's a question from one of our Discord members, Ben, put in earlier. How different, Henry, is the Premier League now to when Burley got Ipswich finishing 5th in 2001? Obviously, those were years, weren't they? Dominated by Wenger and Ferguson. You mentioned Fergie earlier, but how different is, because we've been away for God knows how long, like 20 plus years. Is it a completely different division now in terms of,
Totally different. I mean, when you go into Portman Road, are you at home first? Is it Liverpool you've got?
Liverpool, yeah.
A nice quiet one to
yeah.
But the little things like when you go into Portman Road, and I went to, was it the Wolves game? Was it you were 3-0 down or 2-0 down? You won 3-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to that game, and I hadn't been to the club for a couple of years, and I thought, wow, this has had more than a little bit of lick of paint. Fair play to the owners. There's sort of TLC and a bit more, going into the building and into the squad. But you will notice going into the Premier League, like little things like, well, VAR having to be put in,
yeah, for one thing, yeah,
all the Sky and all the the extra cameras that are going in there, all those things. You'll go to your seat and you will look around and say, well, that's changed. I hope the ticket prices haven't changed too much. I mean, you've got quite a sensible club, and I hope they've not, hiked the price as a lot of clubs are doing. Because again, coming back to that point, the game.
It's good what they've done. Yeah, I think it's good.
Have they been quite balanced, Ipswich?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly they did a walk around with Mark Ashton around the stadium, talking exactly what you're talking about there. The cameras that are going in, you'll be pleased to hear new media suites are going in, new media centre, all that, the new dressing room tunnel, all that kind of stuff. But I think the tickets, I mean, like, I've got a season ticket, lucky enough to have had that for many years. It still seemed affordable to me. I know they cap away prices at 30 quid. I think people were paying 47, Henry, to go to Leeds at Ellen Road last season. Tier below Championship.
Well, I mean, I've got this long-standing thing that I actually think that fans should come together collectively and charge the Premier League, because in terms of how much the Premier League gets, it's 7 billion, with even more in if you throw all the overseas rights in. One of the reasons why the overseas broadcasters, and I can tell you because I talk to them a fair bit, is that the reason why they pay so much is obviously because of the stars in the dugout and on the pitch, the drama, the competitive element, the jeopardy to the Premier League, which is unsurpassed anywhere. It's because of the backdrop, it's because of the fans, it's because of you, it's because of the noise, it's because of the energy, it's because of the chants, the tifos, everything. And really put it in your right, to actually charge the Premier League. And really what they should be doing is not hiking season ticket prices, because actually they make the majority of the money from television, actually, helping out and being more respectful to those, particularly the 18 to 24 generation, because that is one of the key issues, because it's in a way, to an extent, it's the lungs of the club, but of the stands, but it's also the future of the club. But if you treat fans with respect and you don't fleece them, they're more likely to go and have a drink at halftime, or stay on an extra 20 minutes afterwards and have a drink there, rather than going to the many pubs around Portman Road, which I think are still owned by that Bobby Robson team. If I remember, most of their pubs seem to have a former European player behind the bar. I can't remember what your point was. This is the problem. About the moment I get into to Suffolk, the air does strange things to me, and I think I'm walking on the beach at Walberswick and thinking,
okay. How different? Well, you touched upon it there. How different is the Premier League now to it was when we finished 5th back 20 years ago?
A world away, just in terms of the competition. I mean, with respect, you're not going to get 5th. If you stay up, it will be, if you get 17th, that should be your target. I know Kieran McKenna will be thinking more than that, and he will be hoping that people sort of underestimate Ipswich Town, and I would never underestimate Kieran McKenna. But I think some of the buys you've got are good. But yeah, look, it's brutally competitive. You will find it in Olympic terms. It is like going from the qualifying heats to the final in terms of the step up in pace on the track. It is like going, you see some of these runners who are almost running at 400 meter pace in the 5,000 meters. It's a step up in physical pace. It's a step up in mental pace. VAR, welcome to that. Good luck with that. That will frustrate you. You will find, I mean, I'm sure you've all experienced VAR, but that is the frustration of, when do we celebrate the goal? Do we celebrate it twice? Do we go early? So you've got all those issues to come, but it's competitive. Every game is brutal. Absolutely, it's one of the things that Pep says. It's the most competitive league in the world, because everyone fights. There's an ambush all the way. You can be 3-0 down and you'll still fight. So that's why it's the best league in the world. It's the most honest, competitive league in the world. Of course, there is diving, there's simulation, there's tactical fouls. You'll soon get introduced to Rodri and players like that. But that is the nature of it. I mean, it's a step up, but it's possible to stay up.
We're looking forward to it, Henry. These are kind of days we've been relishing, Liverpool coming. We're playing Morecambe, as you said earlier, Rochdale. So, I mean, just to think that we've done this, League One to the Premier League, back to back, everyone's just on cloud nine. Young managers like McKenna, right? I mean, I remember, when Allardyce, Bruce, Pulis, they were like kind of doing the rounds. And now you're seeing like Hertzler at Brighton, Danny Rowe, Sheffield Wednesday, Russell Martin, of course, with Southampton, had success, Vincent Kompany, Xabi Alonso, Invincibles at Leverkusen, a guy you met today, Chris Davis at Birmingham, all coming through. I mean, is this just a bit of a trend at the moment, or do you think we're going to see this for the future? These kind of 30s, early 40-year-olds coming through and making their mark as managers.
I think a lot of them give fantastic presentations. I think which impresses boards. I think the sporting directors maybe look beyond the usual names, and they are prepared to take a gamble. I think Brighton's success has spread, and people are prepared to follow that, because they've seen them Brighton appoint coaches, and it goes well. I think people will look at Ipswich Town and think, well, maybe they did take a gamble on Kieran McKenna, but look, we're now getting £105 million minimum a season in television revenue, so it's worth it. I think absolutely they check out. I think it's fantastic. You see all these young managers coming through. Part of it, I think, is also the Pep effect. If you go to St George's Park, and I go and do the media training for those on the pro license, and there's so many Pep acolytes there. They all want their fullbacks to step into midfield, and there's pressing and playing out from the back, and the goalkeeper has to be Pele. It's all those sort of things that sort of Pep's brought in. I think absolutely, and I think it's good to see a trend like that. But look, there's still a case for the really experienced managers. I mean, Klopp was obviously super experienced. I think the managers now have to have a charisma. Obviously, recruitment is incredibly important. But I think if you talk to some of the younger managers, that they're learning languages as well, because they're stepping into multinational, multi-faith dressing rooms, and sometimes it's important to learn Spanish. I mean, James Milner's, he's going on his coaching path, I imagine, but I mean, he speaks to his kids in Spanish, because when he went into the Manchester City dressing room, there were so many Argentinians there that he thought he'd learn Spanish. So this is the realm that you're stepping into. But you've got an elite manager in Kieran McKenna. I cannot stress that enough. Not simply because I've met him a couple of times, and I just think, instinctive reaction, wow, this is someone you'd fight for. But because he's just got something about it. Also, you've got good owners. I mean, what are they, trillionaires? You've got sort of, the pension funds of America.
Over in Arizona. That's right. Yeah, Blue Light Services in Arizona. Yeah.
Which is terrific. And you've also got one of the best chief executives out there in Mark, who I know from Bristol City. And I did a couple of pieces with him at Bristol City. And just little things like, it's very engaging. He would come to Bristol Temple meet and sort of pick me up, and we'd sort of chat in the car. And I thought, well, actually, that's really nice. But then I realized he's actually just Mark using his time intelligently. So part of the interview was almost conducted at traffic lights, on Bristol High Street. There is that element to him. And I think he's quite a good communicator with you as supporters.
Very good. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because I know there's some clubs where they don't, and the owners or the chief executives hide. But
we've had that before. Marcus Evans, Henry. Yeah.
Well, Marcus Evans. I mean, I think I was at the Telegraph at the Times, and I remember wandering over to the picture desk and saying, "Oh, I'm just doing a piece on Ipswich Town. Have you got any pictures of Marcus Evans?" And I think, well, we got one. and it's kind of like him from the back and the side. We're not quite sure about him, and yeah, I mean, wow, you've been a great club to deal with down the years. And I mean, I went to Roy Keane's press conference when he was appointed, and obviously I covered Roy's career as a player. And I remember sitting there, and I can't remember who was the press officer, but said any questions. So I went in on, which I thought was quite a good question, on Roy Keane, being in that Manchester United 94 team of Ferguson, which was a really good team. Why so many good managers came out of that, like Steve Bruce and Roy Keane. He absolutely tore into me. And he said, why do you think we were a good team? Why do you think, we're good managers? Are you a good journalist? And normally, you know what it's like. There's an element of sort of etiquette, and the guys and girls tend to stand shoulder to shoulder with you if you're getting called out by a manager. And I looked around, and it was like they were sort of halfway to Lowestoft, the rest of the press. So I had to take a coating from Roy Keane on his first day. But yeah. Good, great club to deal with. But manager-wise, you've had some amazing managers, and Kieran McKenna's one of the very best.
I remember you saying on a Mourinho documentary, you just simply said Mourinho, box office. I mean, do you think Kieran could follow those footsteps, albeit in a more understated way?
He's not as cynical as Mourinho. I mean, he's not as self-regarding. He doesn't have that peacock ego that Mourinho's got, which made him box office, which made him great. He's brilliant. I had quite a lively falling out with him, and then I had to host an event with him, and I'd forgotten we'd had this falling out. I think I'd accused him of, I can't remember what I said. So, not only does Mourinho, this was at Spurs, not only does Mourinho part the bus, he's now throwing his players underneath it, and forgetting that I had to host this event with him a week later. And he was just blanked me until we went on air, and then he was absolutely brilliant. And I interviewed him for about 50 minutes, and then the moment the credits rolled, he was just out of there. But McKenna's just more polite, less calculating, but as hardworking, as innovative. I mean, you see far more. But I look at your teams, and I look at crosses, I look at cutbacks, I look at the energy, I look at the pressing. I've talked to some of the players, and they love it. You've got fit players, and I think he will add. I mean, you look at some of the signings. They are Premier League signings that he's making. So I wouldn't compare him to Mourinho. McKenna's special, but in a different way.
Absolutely. We're talking about whether Ipswich can finish that magical 17th. Why were Burnley and Sheffield United, Henry, in your opinion, last season so bad? Because Burnley walked to the division, 100 plus points in the Championship. Just behind them was Sheffield United, but both kind of didn't step up. Sheffield United conceded over 100 goals. I mean, is that just showing us the gulf between Championship or Premier League? Or do you think there was other factors there trying to go toe to toe with ball playing sides? I mean, what's the warning sign there for us, do you think?
Sheffield United didn't have enough goals in them, and the defence was flawed and got opened up. With Burnley, I mean, I'm a huge Vincent Kompany admirer as an individual, one of the most, an individual with so much substance as a man, principles as a man. But I think his principles as a manager, he was too committed to them. Like he stuck with a goalkeeper probably about 7 or 8 games longer than he should, and he was costing them. He didn't really have a plan B. He was just committed to his way of playing, which is admirable. But at some point, you can't be just be obsessed with one dogma. You've got to say, right, I'm going to have to mix it up a bit. I'm going to, maybe beat the press with a longer ball from the goalkeeper. And he didn't change, but he's obviously regarded in the game because he's now at Bayern Munich.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's worked out all right for him, hasn't it? Mike Davey, one of our guys on Discord, says, "Can Ipswich afford to be gung ho this season, Henry?" I mean, we know that McKenna told you himself, didn't he? He wants to play attractive football, attacking football. With that, in the Championship last season came a lot of goals, but we conceded a lot as well. I mean, Luton scored a lot of goals, didn't they, last season? But it's the other end, I think, is the problem that's caused them to be relegated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Luton were a joy to watch, but at times, good to play against. You can't be gung-ho. That's the one thing. I mean, I thought the phrase gung-ho had gone out after Ray Harford in 95 had a sort of think, right, we're going to go gung-ho in Europe, and they got picked off by, I think, Spartak Moscow. you can't go gung-ho. You've got to have that balance of, look, you've got to attack. Absolutely. It is in Ipswich's blood. It's in McKenna's blood. You can see it in the signing of some of your players. I still think you probably need a little bit of strengthening in central midfield. I don't think there's necessarily enough sort of Premier League battle-hardened players in there.
Agreed.
I don't know what the situation with Sami Smodic is. I think if you can get him, that would be an absolute fantastic signing. I don't know what's happened today, but I know that
Ongoing.
it's ongoing. Yeah.
You rate him? You like him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, be terrific. Oh, fantastic player. I mean, he's just. I assume he was in one of the Championship 6 players season. I mean, he'd be a terrific signing for you. So yeah, I think absolutely. Of course, you can stay up. Just make Portman Road a fortress. I know modern grounds tend not to be fortresses, and Luton Town didn't quite make theirs a fortress, but it was slightly inhospitable for players. So I mean, it's going to be down to the fans, it's going to be down to the defenders, it's going to be down to McKenna. But you've got some good attacking players.
Who do you think could be a bit of an inspiration for Ipswich this season, Henry? And obviously you've got Sam Morsey, our captain, that kind of old school enforcer, right? Like a Roy Keane style player, very inspirational to fans and players. Mentioned him earlier. Amari's got all the flair, Amari Hutchinson. Could we see Leif Davis get a left back for England this season? Jacob Greaves has come in as well from Hull City.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, 2 of those I mean, he's obviously been working on the defence. I assume Greaves will step in probably as one of your starting 2 centre halves.
Would have thought so.
Yeah, I mean, he looks good. I like Morsey. I mean, I think he might pick up 1 or 2 yellows. Again,
possibly.
You would know better than me, but just looking at him play, I like. You've got Delapin from City, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, do you rate him?
Well, I've only seen him at 1 or 2 senior games, but seen him in the under 19s or 21s, and there's definitely a player there. And one of the things, if you look at the players that you're buying now, imagine what they're going to be at the end of pre-season, by Christmas, by the end of the year, after they've had this time working under Kieran McKenna. He will improve players. And that's one of the reasons why players want to sign for him. I think Muric, I did actually make a note of what I thought your best signing. Muric, I think, is a decent keeper. Ben Johnson, I mean, I assume he's coming in as a right back.
Yes.
I mean, he can play 1 or 2 other positions as well. One thing I can absolutely guarantee you about him off the pitch, which is obviously not so important because you need him there stopping left wingers and stepping into midfield and creating, he's absolutely, it's just one of the most interesting, brightest role model guys that you can meet. I mean, I did a couple of pieces with him during lockdown over initiatives that he was involved with, which he wasn't trying to push. I just heard about them and got him on a Zoom call, and he's always done these things. He's one of these fantastic role models. So I know Ipswich Town have got a very good sort of community foundation operation, and you will see Ben Johnson probably just going and knocking on the door after training one day saying, how can I help?
That's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I think certainly when Ipswich are recruiting, and you'll know this from your history of Ashton, I think personality, that pedigree is, one of the box tickers for them.
It's absolutely key. You've got to have, you can't have, it's the All Black things, no dickheads. That's at the heart of England under Southgate. Everyone's got to be a good tourist. You've got to have good citizens, to use an FA phrase. So absolutely, you want to work with good people. And I got that impression. I mean, I wouldn't say I've sort of been into the sort of the inner sanctum of your training ground, but just interviewing a couple of people there in the last couple of years, you could sense that there was a band of brothers, is a bit of a cliche, but there was that respect between all players. And remember, they're quite eclectic dressing rooms now. It's not like when you were last in, although I remember interviewing Finidi George, who was absolutely fascinating.
I liked Finidi. Yeah.
Great guy. Fantastic
great
guy.
goals.
Yeah, he did. I mean, you did overpay him, but I mean, he was quite a. I think that contract was a little bit much. But what an absolute character! Utterly obsessed with the BBC. That's all he wanted to talk about. He said, "You're English journalist about the BBC." Yeah, because I think he grew up just listening to the BBC World Service.
Oh, maybe.
Honestly, a real character. I've interviewed some Ipswich characters Jim Agilton. That was a interview. So characters. But you're completely right. You've got to have good characters. You can't have dickheads.
Do you think Leif Davis can make a push for left back at England this coming season? You obviously got all those assists in the Championship last season. You know, that was a position that everyone was worrying about at the Euros, wasn't it?
Yeah. So how many assists did he get? Some crazy amount. Was it 8? Was it
18? I think it was. 18. Yeah, it's the most in the Championship season. I think it beat Trippier's record. Yeah.
Did he? Well, that's fantastic. Well, talking of left backs out of position, I mean, Kieran he wasn't really a name. It wasn't really a name that was sort of pushed forward at that time. But that's one thing you're going to find now is that now you're in the Premier League, all your players will get linked with their international teams. Those are not your kit man will get linked with England. I mean, that is just the nature of the Premier League. The media is, you will see it. They're 10 times more focused. Your subscription numbers will go up. Your followers will go up because it's Premier League, and it's not simply Suffolk talking. It's not simply East Anglia. It's not simply the UK. It's around the world. People will be fascinated in Ipswich Town. They'll want to know about Portman Road. All your supporters clubs around the world will increase in numbers. I mean, you've only got to look at the interest in America now. I mean, I covered the '94 World Cup, and that was really just like being in no one was interested. The baseball was going on, and people. OJ was being chased down the highway, and there were more helicopters following that than following the teams in the World Cup. So look, the interest all over the world, you will have that. And they'll what's interesting, you'll find is they will follow clubs, but they will also follow individuals as well. And when that player leaves, even if you stay up, those fans will move on and follow him. It's kind of like a Messi syndrome. People follow the individual as well as the club. But yeah, absolutely. Mark's cute. You'll probably be opening or selling shirts around the world. So also because you've got Ed Sheeran, he pushes your shirts? Doesn't he wear them on stage at times?
He does. Yeah, he's the shirt sponsor again for this coming season. He's got his album tour title on the front.
Has he? So,
yeah.
And the thing I know, I went to a private party, and he was very bizarrely performing there. And I was just at the bar talking to his manager. This is a few years ago, and absolutely Ipswich obsessed. None of that is, you get that with well-known people think, well, I'll surf the football wave. We see it with politicians, but he is absolutely, I don't need to tell you that, he's absolutely genuine. Obviously, he's put his money where his mouth is, and he's sponsoring you.
It's brilliant. It's great to see as well. It's more inspirational, isn't it, to have someone like an Ed Sheeran than a betting company on there. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Henry, look, we're winding down now. Thanks all for your time.
No,
been absolutely fantastic. Sharon from our Discord says she misses Sunday supplement. I used to enjoy tuning into that. What I would like to know, though, is that breakfast you used to have on the table, was it real? And did you actually ever eat any of it? Or was that just reserved for ad breaks?
You know what? It was initially plastic. And then,
I thought it might be. Also,
a few people who hadn't been on the program before got chipped teeth. So they went for real croissants. And then one of the guys was slightly sort of self-conscious about his weight. And he knew his wife would be watching. So whenever we went into an ad break, or when we were coming out of an ad break, we absolutely piled up his plates with croissants. And then we went to the next one, we took them off, and he would always get rollicking when he got home. You've eaten 10 croissants again with your sort of spotty mates on TV. So no, it was really good fun. And we do a sort of kind of similar program. Me and Sean Custis do something like that on TalkSport at the weekend on a Sunday morning, because there is an appetite. But it's just like, you guys, I mean, all we're doing is sitting around eating croissants. We're trying not to eat them, preserve our waistline, and chewing the fat and talking about football. And, you see what's going on in the world, and you think, my God, we need the return of football. Football is just so important, and you guys are so important. And you are, without getting carried away, you are the conscience of the Premier League. You will look around the Premier League, you'll hear the stories coming out of Premier League meetings, and you'll go, my God, there are quite a few charlatans, there are quite a few cowboys, there are quite a few people I wouldn't really trust, around this sport that I love. And you are going to be in for quite a shock with some of the stunts that get pulled, with some of the tensions amongst the elite. Obviously, the Championship is brutal, but there's nothing as brutal as a Premier League board meeting.
I can imagine. I bet. Final question, Henry. Richard Chandler. Obviously, we play Liverpool opening day of the season. A man who played for both. Johnny Walk, the absolute legend. How much would he be worth in today's money, do you think? I mean, he was a goal-scoring machine from midfield, wasn't he?
He was. It depends where you want to play him. I mean, he could play in a range of positions. Johnny Walk at his peak. Well, I mean, if Chelsea are buying central midfielders for 120 million, I would have thought John 70, 80. Depends how long his contract was. Depends. Yeah. Oh, I mean, what a player he was. But you had so many good players. BT, what a player BT was.
Would he have got 100 caps for England, BT, do you think, if he'd stayed fit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Butcher as well. What a player, Butch. I mean, it's been privileged to sort of get to know Butch down the years. I mean, Burley, obviously, with Scotland. Mariner, we talked about as we started off. What a player he was. Just the look, the touch. He was a finisher. He could create. There's a very good book about him a couple of years ago, which I think actually came out around the same time that he sadly passed away. And yeah, and he was good. And I got to know his son, who's working in the music industry, and I thought, well, God, you are
been on the show. Yeah.
Has he? Do you know what? I mean, I remember talking to him, and it just on a Zoom, and I just thought, what amazed your dad will be so proud about how you yourself have worked out, how you have reached for the stars in your own profession, and maybe that's the Ipswich way, Great men leave great legacies, and you're all filling that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Henry, we're going to leave it there. You may recall one of my favourite lines of yours when you came to Portman Road one year and said, where Ipswich once had Brazil, they now have Scotland, which I thought summed up sort of Marcus Evans era fantastically well. But hopefully that's in the rearview mirror. Like you say, McKenna, hopefully open road ahead. Let's see what we can do. I hope we can finish 17th because we want to be dining. I always call it the dining with kings, Henry. That's where we want to be. We want to be at that top table. We've played your Morecambes and Rochdales. We want to stay here. But thanks ever so much for your time. Good luck with the Henry Winters goalposts. I hope everyone subscribes to it. It's great to have in your inbox every day. Thank you very much, Henry. All the best for the coming season.
Good luck for the season. Look forward to seeing you down in these new media facilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as the Wi-Fi works and there's coffee, I don't care.
Great stuff. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Henry.
Cheers.
You're on mute, Martin.
That was phenomenal. Sorry, that was so good. I muted myself. That was phenomenal. A phenomenal chat. The live chat, absolutely loved it, Mr. Phillips. Thanks so much to Henry for dropping by. But Matt, well done for yourself for getting Henry on, because I loved it. Those at home loved it. And I sort of ran just to finish the show, just wanted to publicly say well done to you.
Yeah, thanks. I hope everyone enjoyed it. As we say, Talking Town is evolving. We're going into the Premier League. Hopefully we can get more guests like Henry on. And as Henry said, all eyeballs are on Ipswich at the moment. You're one of the top 20 teams in the Premier League. With that comes global appeal. And we're here for the ride, Martin. Let's enjoy whatever might happen, whether we finish bottom, whether we finish fourth for bottom, whether we finish fifth, like we did under Burley, who knows? But let's enjoy the ride. Let's not be too cynical about it. We're all here. We didn't all think we'd get here. Who could have predicted back-to-back promotions? Nobody. So let's enjoy it whilst we're here and get behind McKenna and the team. As Henry says, we've got a fantastic manager.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was thoroughly engrossed in it. Didn't know I was on mute. I got to be honest, I had a list of work I was hoping to get done while listening, and I just couldn't, because every time I thought I was going to have a chance to tackle it, Henry said something else that was worth listening to and gave you more and more information. And it's such a fantastic listen, and the people at home obviously really loved it as well. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for hosting. And again, publicly, well done, Matt, for sourcing Henry as a guest. And of course, our thanks to Henry for joining us. Like, subscribe. See you all go all again very soon here on Talking Town as we do enter the Premier League campaign. Looking forward to it. We'll catch you soon. All the best. Crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair.